been talking about the little impact the delay in the Nigerian elections has had on the markets in Nigeria. And we had Leon Myberg of Citi right here in South Africa this morning saying probably because it's postponed on account of the fact that we have a council that wants to pursue a free and fair election, and that lending some positive bias to the situation. What's your view on what's playing out right now?
I think generally the market is in London, foreign investors are not that perturbed. I mean, actually our view is it's quite a brave decision to delay the elections by a week. I mean, what you generally see in the Nigerian context is that if you run into a problem, the past electoral commissions may well have tried to bluff it and push ahead with it, even though things weren't quite ready. So by delaying it for a week, if they can get things in better shape, well, yeah, that probably is a positive. I mean, Nigerian elections are hugely problematic affairs from a logistical side, and just in avoiding incidents of violence which have been around other past elections. So, I mean, let's see if they get it right. Certainly, at the moment, the hope is that this will be all right and that they will manage to hold it next week. If it starts getting delayed beyond then, obviously I think things become more problematic and people will get more concerned about what's going on or not going on in Nigeria.
So for now, a temporary setback that we're looking at. It's already being labelled possibly the most unpredictable election since military rule ended in 1999, where personality and patronage rather than policies usually decides the winners. Do you share that sentiment?
Well, I don't think it's an unpredictable election. I do think, as you point out in true Nigerian fashion, it's never really, or Nigerian elections since the return to civilian rule in 1999, have never really been about economic policies or policy differences. They are more about personalities and the political power of parties and state governors to deliver votes. But I don't think they're unpredictable. I still think that all the limited opinion poll data we have shows us that President Goodluck probably will secure victory in these polls. I mean, there's doubts about whether he can secure it in a first round. I'm not sure whether they're overplayed or not, but this criteria that the president in the first round not only needs to win 50% plus one vote, but also needs to win 25% in 2/3 of the states. My suspicion, though, for the opposition is that the vote will be divided. The two leading northern candidates, Muhammadu Buhari and Nuhu Ribadu, may well split the northern vote, which means that President Goodluck will probably secure victory overall. And certainly if you look at the amount of money that the PDP has been able to throw in its election campaign and making sure that their message is heard around the country, they do have an overwhelming advantage. So I'm not convinced. I mean, it is a relatively predictable election, I would argue. I think if you're looking in the longer term, I suspect that this election, if it passes off well, lays the groundwork for a 2015 election, which will be very unpredictable. If, as we suspect, President Jonathan keeps his word that he's only going to run for one term, then the PDP has to select new governors. I think the opposition could have moved forward significantly. Perhaps Ribadu will unite with perhaps someone like Governor Fasciola from Lagos State. So I think all that lays the roads down for 2015, being a very interesting election. But this time I would be considerably surprised if the PDP doesn't retain its majority and if President Jonathan doesn't win.
In the interim then, if President Goodluck Jonathan does take seat at the helm once more, do you see policy under him continuing as we've seen thus far?
No, I mean, he'll be under a lot of pressure to deliver. I mean, if he really is wedded to this idea that he's only going to serve one term, the hope is that he's used this just under 1 year that he's had in power already to set the groundworks for a real step up in policy. I mean, one way that I think about Nigerian policy sometimes is that under President Obasanjo in his second term, he unleashed the first wave of reforms that sort of died away a little bit under the Yar'Adua presidency, partially due to the president's ill health. But the question is now, can President Jonathan, or perhaps can President Jonathan, if he's elected, instigate a new wave of reforms? And I mean, he's laid out his cards on this. They've talked a lot about the power sector, how to get that going. They have this presidential commission that's drawn up some proposals. On the other structural front, they are clearly moving ahead with their plans for some investment in infrastructure. The petroleum industry bill is still on the table. And then I think from outside, we'd perhaps also be looking for investment in the agricultural sector, try and kickstart the agricultural sector in Nigeria. So on the structural side, all those policies there, wow, we're really looking to see is whether he can hit the ground running, whether they can start really making changes and pushing the legislation through the National Assembly.
David, just very quickly,
on the policy side, on the more...
Sorry to interrupt, but we've run out of time here. And just very quickly, looking at the other two candidates, Muhammadu Buhari and then, of course, Nuhu Ribadu, they've got Muhammadu Buhari running with a very tainted past, if you can say that, a former military ruler who says now that he's a convert to democracy. You've got Nuhu Ribadu, who appeals more so in their books to the younger audience. Any concerns with regards to their candidacy positions at this stage?
I don't think there's concerns. I mean, the issues identified in Nigeria, the structural constraints to growth, are very clear. Power, agriculture, all these things are clear. I think what you would see, though, if either of those were to secure victory, is that both of them would have a greater focus, both Buhari from his past record and Ribadu in his previous job, on fighting corruption. And I guess from an investment perspective outside, what you would see is this, what you could nearly call a classic Nigerian situation, where if either are elected, they would go back and revisit contracts and start exploring whether there were corrupt practices in various things that have happened under the previous governments. So what that would do is would it slow it down. So the difference is not really that there's a major difference in policy, it's just that we hope that Jonathan hits the ground running, whereas if the other two win, you would expect a period of delay while they explored issues particularly around corruption, that then they would be able to move on beyond that afterwards.